Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on whenever you're watching this. This is Mr. Chandler, and the focus for today is going to be on text annotations. Now, you may have already learned this in 7th grade or even 6th grade, but I feel like it's something we need to go ahead and touch up on, especially because it's a huge portion of how you can do close reading. It is not only going to help you when you're doing the end of grade testing at the end of the year, but also when we're going about using the different novels and short stories in class. First off, we need to make one little distinction here. You need to copy everything that you see in red. This goes for any set of notes that we do, whether you're copying that in your notebook or whenever you copy notes online, whenever we have that opportunity. But anyways, to annotate, it means to draw circles, symbols, underline words, and write in the margins of any piece of text that you have. That way you know exactly how to go about marking in these different pages and whatnot. It's going to be a huge portion of what we do in class, so just make sure that you know that when I say, okay, you need to annotate in your text, you know, okay, it means that I need to start writing in the text. Or if you're using a Google Doc, there's different ways of going about that, but we'll get into that whenever we start to focus more on using the Chromebooks. But people ask, why do we really annotate? Well, you annotate in order to really try to break down a huge piece of text, whether it is a paragraph, a page, or even an entire book, and really try to condense everything down and try to get the best information that you can out of it. It's used to just pick and choose what you feel is the best info. It's to really try to simplify the text down. That way you're not looking at 3 pages and just getting confused by it. It's a chance for you to take that text and to make it yours. So yes, the author, whether it's Gary Paulson or J.K. Rowling, they may have written this text for you, but you as a reader get the chance to make that yours and to make your own understanding from it. And it's for you to actually figure out what it means. So whether you're reading a fiction text and you're like, okay, so what's the author trying to get across here, or if you're reading like a newspaper article and trying to figure out what exactly the main story is that the reporter is writing on, it's your chance to figure out what does it mean. And you can use this not only in language arts, but you can use this all across your different content areas. So in social studies, if you're reading newspapers or journal articles, primary documents, which would be like the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, the Diary of Anne Frank, or anything visual like charts or graphs, like a population chart or anything like that, you can annotate and try to figure out what exactly is the meaning of this. In science class with Miss Fry, you can use science textbooks, lab reports whenever you get the chance to do labs, National Geographic articles, and so on and so forth. And you can even use this with math too. So think about all these word problems that you may have on the end of grade test. You can go in and try to figure out, okay, what exactly is the question asking? So if Johnny has 3 apples and Mary has 5 apples, how many apples do they have together? Okay, so you know 3, you can underline that. 5, you can underline that. And then you can just say, okay, 3 plus 5 equals 8. And you can use this outside of the classroom as well. So think of recipes. If you need to figure out what exactly is the recipe calling for as far as how many cups of sugar, or how to. So let's say you're trying to change your oil in your car whenever you get to be 16 and older. You can even use this on Facebook and Twitter too. So if you're really trying to figure out what your best friend is trying to say, just underline and do a circle of the words, and go about trying to figure out why they may be saying this. It's a fun little thing to do in your free time. At least I believe so. This is not annotating. Okay. If you do this in class, for shame. This is actually my textbook from whenever I was in college, but my point being, don't go in and just highlight, underline, and circle every bit of info in here, because all you're doing is just making your book look colorful. This is annotating. So just offhand, what do you notice about this paper here? So what different things do you see? And if you're watching this at home, you may see underlines, you may see some circles here, some squiggly underlines here, so they may have a different meaning depending on how the author used it. And you can definitely see there are tons of different words and writings inside the margins here. So that's going to be the real thing that we focus on. So when you get the chance to copy these notes down, go ahead and make this chart here. On one side, create type of annotation and then example. So if you notice, I've got two different things here for each one. So I've got underline and highlight. So this is going to depend on whether you're doing this by hand on paper or if you're using Google Docs or any sort of software online for you to really annotate. So this is just a chance for you to look at both of these in different contexts. So the first one is underlining or highlighting key phrases or words. So this is where you go in and you quickly highlight or underline small bits of info. So you're not going to underline whole sentences or like huge chunks of paragraphs, just underlining through and through, because then you'll end up with the example we saw earlier with my textbook. So for example, let's say you're reading a piece of info on the Declaration of Independence. We can underline is the Declaration of Independence, because of course that's the focus of the article. It was signed in 1776. Okay, so that's the key phrase you're looking for here. So Declaration of Independence, signed 1776. Okay, that really condenses that down. You can circle or star vocab words, and again, it's going to depend on whether you're using pen and paper or Google Docs. So, plants create sugar through photosynthesis. Okay, so if you're not sure what photosynthesis means, or if you feel like it's a key word for you to recognize in here, that's not like a key detail like from above, go ahead and circle that. You can bracket or box paragraphs. Again, so this is going to really help you when you're doing writing in the margins. So these two really go hand in hand together. So let's say, Jimmy was a man who enjoyed hiking through the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, so let's say this had 3 or 4 more sentences in it. I just condensed just for time's sake. So you can do a bracket around the entire paragraph. That way you know, okay, I need to summarize this, I need to go back to this later on, I need to go ahead and reread this. So think of bracket as rereading. And then of course you can write in the margins. This is your chance to really make your own connections to it. This is your chance to really put into text what you're thinking of whenever you're reading. So for example, if you're reading this paragraph up here, Jimmy was a man who enjoyed hiking through the Appalachian Mountains, you can think, okay, well, I think this is a paragraph about courage. So then you would actually write in the space around and near your text exactly that. You can even say courage if you want to go even shorter with it. So just some things to write in the margins. You can summarize info. You can do drawings to help you visualize. You can ask questions. You can say, okay, so what's the main conflict here, or why does the character do this? You can ask questions, of course. You can make connections to your own life. So if you see 2 brothers fighting in a piece of fiction, you could say, okay, so me and my brother have done this often. And then you can define your vocab words, your unknown words. So going back to those ones you circled, you can say, okay, so this is a keyword that I need to look up, and then you can go back to it later and say, okay, so I know photosynthesis is where plants go through the cell cycle and whatnot. So let's try this out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up a sample here from Holes. So we're not going to go through the entire thing here, just a little bit of it. And I'm going to annotate using my drawing board here, or hopefully. If not, then Or if not, then we can just go ahead and use the computer here, so it's no problem. So we have Holes by Louis Sachar. So Stanley got dressed, the clothes smelled like soap. So offhand, you can say, okay, so this smelled like soap. Here. You can underline. Okay, Stanley, that's a key one, so you can underline that. Okay, Mr. Sir told him he should wear one set to work in and one set for relaxation. Okay, Mr. Sir, we know he's a pivotal character in this, so you can underline that. One set for relaxation. Okay, so you can underline this, and then off in the margins, you can make a comment about what exactly it means for relaxation. So let's see if I got this working again. Okay, so you can go here. Why? Whoop. Not showing up on there? That's fine. Anyways, so you can, let's see, try the text box. Good. So that's connecting to that one. Laundry was done every 3 days. On that day, his work clothes would be washed. Then the other set would become his work clothes, and then he would get clean clothes to wear while resting. Okay, so you know offhand that this is going through a cycle. So if you want, you can put bracket here, bracket here. And so again, you can annotate however you need to. So going through a cycle. Okay, you are to dig one hole each day, including Saturdays and Sundays. Each hole must be 5 feet deep and 5 feet across in every direction. Your shovel is your measuring stick. Breakfast is served at 4:30. Okay, so you can underline here. Say, why so early? Stanley must have looked surprised because Mr. Sir went on to explain that they started early to avoid the hottest part of the day. No one is going to babysit you, he added. The longer it takes you to dig, the longer you will be out in the sun. When you dig up anything interesting, you are to report it to me or any other counselor. When you finish, the rest of the day is yours. Okay, so you can put a star here for a key vocab word, so counselor, so you can probably make a connection to like camps, you know, youth groups, or trainers, anything like that. When you finish, the rest of the day is yours. Stanley nodded to show he understood. This isn't a Girl Scout camp. Okay, so you remember the Girl Scouts? Some of you may be in the Girl Scouts, or may have been, or you may have just known what this is. So, said Mr. Sir. He checked Stanley's backpack and allowed him to keep it. Then he led Stanley outside to the blazing heat. Okay, blazing heat. I feel like that's a key thing to understand too, so underline that. And so you can even say, where is this at? Deserts. Take a good look around you, Mr. Sir said. What do you see? Stanley looked out across the vast wasteland. Okay, wasteland, that's a very good descriptive word here. The air seemed thick with heat and dirt. Not much, he said, and hastily added, Mr. Sir. See any guard towers? No. About electric fences? No, sir. No fences at all. Okay, so we have a bit of repetition here, so you can underline. And then figure language. And again, you just can see how I'm going about this process, and we'll get more into it together in class, but this is just a chance for you to really understand what it means to annotate a text and to really make that text yours. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, and I will see you next time.